Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Don Maxwell from Brentwood, our spiritual speaker.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Don, and I'm an alcoholic. And as speakers always say, I'm happy to be here, and I am happy to be here. And another reason that I'm happy to be here is, to come into an AA meeting where I don't know anybody, and then I don't have to worry about who to resent. So, then it makes it a little easier for me to just sit and relax. It makes me happy. The first thing I would like to do is, first of all, my wife Terry and I have had a great time here this weekend. It's been just a lot of fun. We played. They had to drag us away from bingo, and we didn't win anything, by the way. Lost $3 for crying out loud. And and I want to thank Clyde for bringing us up here. We would have missed it. I mean, stuff goes on all over the world where people like you and I are getting together and having these kinds of functions and fellowship and so forth. There's two kinds of things. There's the fellowship and there's the program. And the fellowship is in the chair next to you, and the program's in that big book that's not here, but it's over there. Oh, wait, there it is. There it is. And a lucky newcomer is going to get that at the end of this day. And by the way, whoever gets that book is just like a parachute. It will not save your behind unless you open it up. So, just remember that when you go to it. So I'm going to talk a little bit, what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now, and what happened, and also in keeping with I liked last night, they talked a little bit about, contempt prior to investigation and how it got in. It was in the first edition in one of the stories, and you know how they put a little bit before the story, and it was Ray Campbell. It was in the first edition, and he put it, and it was attributed to Herbert Spencer. And then sometimes if you're in a big book study and someone says, well, Herbert Spencer didn't even write that, But here's that thing that is really important for us: principles before personalities, because the principle is there and we don't care who wrote it. We know, if anyone wants to know who wrote it, talk to me after, and I'll be happy to divulge that to you, because I'm that guy in the big book study that says that. So, anyway. All right. So anyway, and here's the deal. The deal is we come in and we suffer from selfishness, self-centeredness, and we want to be in charge of everything. And when we come in here, this isn't going to work. It didn't work when I tried to go and put it down and substitute. All of the stuff in chapter 3. Going to sanitary. Further down in the second part of chapter 3, and none of that seemed to work. And the problem is that we want to control and enjoy our drinking. The great obsession. The problem with controlling and enjoying is they're like Clark Kent and Superman, never found in the same room at the same time. It's because if I'm controlling my drinking, I'm not having a good time. And if I'm enjoying my drinking, these Al-Anon ladies are scared. So, that's the... So that's the problem. And but there is that thing called denial, and that's what went on for so much. I drank for about 22 years, and and it was I tried all of those things that are written down in chapter 3, and I would get a little bit of success and not, and when in chapter 5, no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. I was constantly trying to find that woman, on my arm, and forever I would you know, I don't know if I'm from Los Angeles or Brentwood, which is really Los Angeles, and I don't know if I have the record in here, but in my lifetime, looking for that right woman to, you know, straighten me out, I've had, well, I've had 8 wives, all right? No, only, thank you very much. I appreciate that, but only 3 of them were mine, so, you know. But I like to brag a little bit, you know. I'm an older fellow. Yeah. The old gray mare ain't what he used to be, but, you know, what can I tell you? And the thing is, it didn't work. You know, I always thought, and that's it, if I just had. And in my lifetime, you know, I had a lot of those just hads. You know, when I was a little youngster in college and high school, I wanted to be an actor, and then I moved into Los Angeles, and I got to do that as a profession, and I wanted to get this particular kind of house, and I got that particular kind of a car, and it just didn't matter because, as a matter of fact, I was selling real estate. Now here, check this out, gang. I got my real estate license at a crazy farm called Camarillo State Mental Hospital on Voc Rehab. This is the God's truth. Newcomers, if you're in here, we don't lie. We just tell you the truth. It's just as crazy. We have this peculiar mental twist that goes around in there. And so I got my real estate license, and they put this glassine or plastic thing on from a title company, so they'll get you to use their title company when you sell a house, and they put this generic family in there, and my generic family didn't look anything, they were blondes, so, you know, and what I did was I went through the newspaper, because it was Sunday, and I saw this beautiful blonde in there, and I said, well, that would, and I cut it, it was for Salem cigarettes, and she's smoking a cigarette, so I cut the cigarette out and put her in my thing, and put it up there, and the people would come in and say, well, if she's married to Don, we should buy the house, you know? And here's what happened. I'm sitting there, and I'm saying, you know, if I just had a woman like that, and if I could get a brand new car, if I could just only one, I'd like to act on television one time, and if I could get a house south of the boulevard. Now, where I lived, that was the good place here in Lancaster and Palmdale and so forth. You guys know where you'd like to live. You know, that's the place. And I don't know that this happened, but it could have happened. God's up there, and he's looking down, and he hears this guy, and he goes, oh, no, not this putz again. St. Peter, come here. We're going to have some fun. Come on over here. It's Don again. We can't get him a girl like the picture. We'll just go ahead and ruin her life, and we'll get him the girl in the picture and ruin her life. And so I did. I met, she was a producer of a Wild West show that I went to work as Doc Holliday in this, and we had a little wagon and horses and stuff like that. And we somehow fell in love, and after about 3 months of a tumultuous relationship, we got married. We bought a house south of the boulevard. Now, ladies, you know, by now you know me using her credit and her money because I had none. And I did get a house south of the boulevard thanks to her, and I got leased a car, so I got a new car, and I got my first job in television, and it was on, and you guys might remember this. You won't remember me, but you'll remember the show. It was Rockford Files, and the job was as a prison guard, and I was really good, because I knew exactly how to look at the camera, just like this, because I had had just a little bit of experience at what prison guards were like, and the director said, this guy's terrific. And so I got that, and you know, and I had all of these things, and all of the things I had asked for, you know, the south of the boulevard, the woman, the thing, and I could not stop drinking alcohol. Probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And God help the sponsee that comes to me and says, if I only had, because he's in for some trouble. He's in for some trouble. So anyway, this goes on, and of course, after a little while, we were divorced, and what happened is, you know, here's what happened. You know, I actually had gone to Alcoholics Anonymous. I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous when I was 29 years old. I was I got in trouble. I forgot to look at my clock, but I'll get us out of here in time and get to the drawing, you guys. Okay, and because some of you guys need groceries, so it's going to do that. We're going to get there, and we'll get over there. I got arrested. Okay, and it wasn't. I heard you laugh, and it wasn't my fault, and I'm going to explain because it's important that you guys understand that I'm a man of quality. It was my girlfriend's fault, right, ladies? You understand? Well, here's what it was. You guys judge after you hear the story, okay? So I had this machine gun, and I was, and this was a long time ago in 1969, before machine guns were in fashion. So I'm kind of a man ahead of my time, and so I was keeping it over at her house because the cops never came to her house. They were all, I'm looking over here at the alternate jury over here on the side there. And so I'm keeping it there, and then we got in some kind of an argument, and she said, get out of here and take this with you. You know how women hold a machine gun? You know, like, so some guys in Hollywood hold them like this too, you know. And so I got out, and I yelled at her on the way out, and whatever I said, and it probably wasn't very nice, and I went out, and if I would have done what any one of you would have done, if I would have just shut my mouth, opened up my trunk, put the gun in my trunk, closed my car, and driven home, I wouldn't have gotten any trouble. There was one problem. I didn't have a car. I always meant to have a car. In that book over there, it says we all have moral and philosophical convictions galore, but we couldn't live up to them. And I had this conviction to have a car, but I was without car at that time. So I had to walk home from her house, and I had to go up Harbor Street in Hollywood. And so I figured if I'm going to go up the street, it was really important that I look cool. So up the street I go with the gun. And some miserable SOB saw me and ratted me out to the cops. And around the corner they come, and you know, lights blazing, they're sheriffs in Hollywood. And I know that gun, not a good thing, so I secreted it away in the bushes there, and I tried to look nonchalant, you know, how you try and do, you know. And the cops came up, and I had a beard at the time, and they said, we're looking for some guy with a beard that has a rifle. And I said, oh, I know, officer, that's dangerous here. That's what I'm trying to get out of the neighborhood. And he did not think that was funny. And he said, look, punk, either you tell us where that, nobody calls me punk. I said that to myself, though, you know, because he had his gun and mine was in the bushes over here, you know, so I knew what I was doing. He says, look, punk, if you don't tell us where that gun is, I'm going to arrest you for drunk. Ooh, $25 fine, okay? Misdemeanor. In the bushes, felony, okay? So I'm thinking I'm fast on my feet even when drunk, and I said, look, officer, a couple of guys like us, you know, manly men, let's just talk. If I tell you where the gun is, would you just not arrest me? And he says, Don, look, you see the people that are gathering on the street there? I got to do something. You tell me where the gun is, and you have my word of honor. I will not arrest you. So I thought it over with this magical mystic mind of mine, and I said, should I take the misdemeanor $25 fine or the felony behind bush number 2 over here? And you already know what I did, don't you? I pointed to the gun. They get them out there. They're holding the gun up here like they found Oswald's rifle, you know. The people on the sidewalk are applauding like they captured Dillinger, you know. But you guys, I'm going to tell you, the cops are taking it in the media now. He did not arrest me. He kept his word. He did. Yeah, he had his partner arrest me, so it was, you know, totally legal. And so they sent me to jail, and I got, actually the girl that threw me out got me a lawyer from Dickens and Shyster or something like that, and of course she paid for the lawyer, you know, and it's like, and they got it reduced to brandishing a firearm in the city limits for time served, but I had to go to 6 meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous, and So I went to the meetings, and actually went to the meetings at the same clubhouse that the Al-Anon speaker yesterday, where her father got sober, and I actually knew her father. It's just amazing. I knew her sponsor and her husband. So we are tightly put together. We are worldwide. You know, we run into people all the time. So I go in there, and I'm looking around, and I'm seeing one thing that's in this old 29-year-old brain, and it's a lot of really nice-looking women, you know. And a lot of them had jobs, you know, so there was so I'm thinking there, and they're talking this and that, and I'm thinking, oh, this is good, and I'm getting my little thing signed, and you know, I'm thinking, this is not for me, you know, they're, you know, pretty lame in here, and they're lame, and I'm the only one with a court card, and later I find out, you know, you can sign them yourself. Well, you could then. You can't sign them yourself now because of the internet, right? Yeah. So make sure if you've got a court card that you get the right person to sign it, okay? We're covered on, okay, all right, yeah. So I go, so I get my little 6 things signed, and nice people, they were pretty nice, and so I thought, you know, I'd go back there if things started to get worse for me, you know, like if I was captured with a bazooka or something like that, you know, I'd go back there, and off I go for another 8 or 9 years, and finally I get popped again, and I start to think, well, this is starting to get to be a problem. On that one, I get away with, instead of drunk driving, reckless driving. So, you know, plead it down or whatever, because I stalled on getting the breath test and all that stuff. And then I know I'm in trouble, and finally I'm just getting terrible. I'm feeling and hating myself, and I know I don't need to explain that to you, you know, and everything is bad, and now I'm 42 years old, and my career sucks, and I'm doing this thing like with 2 other actors, and we're getting these women that come into town that want to be actresses, and we're doing things with them, not what you're thinking, buddy. You know, we're doing scenes so they can. Yeah, no, not you specifically. You specifically, and scenes so they can take it to an agent and get an agent. And we had this one lady from Hawaii, and she was just not good at all, which is not, by the way, a crime. But one of my partners says, we're going to have to do one that's a comedy now so we can show your versatility, another $500. And I felt terrible about it. Just, you know, what have I come to? I took my third of the money, but still. And what happened is we shot into the night, and we're finishing up, and I'm drinking. By the end of the night, I'm drinking cooking sherry. And what I'm drinking is alcohol. Cooking sherry is the most terrible thing in the world, but I drank it, you know, because I wanted to keep going because I'm hating myself so much. And so I'm going home, and now it's morning, and I stopped at the 7-Eleven, and it's like about 5 minutes to 6, where you can, where you guys are in California, so you can buy alcohol, and I'm there to my constitutional right to buy alcohol, and I get a 6-pack of beer, Budweiser, the king of beers, of course, yeah, and I take it home to my palatial 1-bedroom apartment above a garage, okay, and my desk is in the living room, and there's a big window there, and it's still a little bit dark, and I'm seeing myself in the window, and my life sucks, my career sucks, I've just ripped off this lady, I hate myself, and I decide to kill myself. And so I thought, well, you know what? When they find me, I want to have my Marine uniform on, my officer's uniform. I want to have my medals there. Well, it would have been great if I was in the service. I was never in the service. So I decided I was going to OD. And I'd already done that last Wednesday, so I couldn't do that. So I'm looking around, all around the house. I find my weapon of choice, a Ginsu serrated steak knife, guaranteed for a lifetime, all right? And this one was going to make it too, you know, so it's all right. So now don't do this. Don't say the guy from LA, do not cut your wrist, because it's just stupid. It doesn't work, number one, and then when you put your watch back on, it just hurts like hell when you sober up, so don't do that. But what I heard, this was before the internet, and what I heard is if you cut your throat, you just quietly go to see God. And I thought, that's cool. And so I'm thinking, all right, I'm going to cut my throat, but wait a second. You know, I am pretty drunk, but I realize if I cut my throat, I don't have any relatives, no one's talking to me, so they'll just take me down to the old coroner, and they don't even stitch you up nice, they just sort of baste you a little bit, you know. And I'm going to look bad when all those women come to see me, and they're not going to happen. But I thought, well, you know what I'll do? I'll open my collar, and I'll cut real low, you know. Not as low as Lorena Bobbitt cut, but, you know, just real low. And then when everyone comes to see what they did to me, and what happens is, one of my lame friends, a normie, who's on his way to work, that's how lame he was, he sees a light on in my house at about 6:37 in the morning, and he comes by and he knocks on the door, and he says, and I go to the door and I say, yeah, what do you want? And he says, what in the heck are you doing? I said, I'm killing myself. And he said, with that? And I said, yes, what's Azuya? He says, can I come in? I says, come on in. He says, do you mind if I use your phone? And I said, okay. He said, can I use your phone book? And well, if there's newcomers in a phone book, we used to have places where you could find numbers in this book. And he said, so he dials up and he calls up the suicide lady. And you know, not the suicide lady, that'd be stupid. You get the anti-suicide lady and gets her on the, we put him misdialed by one number, you would have had a better speaker here. But, you know, and she gets on and she says, you can either have West Valley Mental Health or Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, I'd had both, and I liked the girls better at Alcoholics Anonymous because the ones up there were crazier. So I said, all right, you know. So I'll go, and I called up, and this guy said, you know, come on over, and meet me, and I'll be there waiting for you, and you'll be a little bit scared, so I won't be scared when I come through that door. It'll get dark and everything. He said, oh, okay, come on over, yeah. And so I went over, and he sat me down, and guys, you know, hi, how are you? You know, have a cup of coffee, and how you doing today? And oh, sobriety, you know, all of this stuff. And I'm thinking, what a bunch of lames, you know. And I'm thinking, what I'm really looking for is a wife, you know, and which is really stupid because I was already engaged at the time, but I was looking to upgrade, you know. So you know, and I'm there, and I sat down, and what happened? And I can't, you know, it's been so long ago, I can't quite remember how or what. I'm still holding this knife. I'm going to put it down. Okay. I can't help it. So I'm there, and I don't know exactly what happened, but yeah, keep it away from me. You never know. You don't know. I could go at any minute. So can you picture the headline? Anyway. So the spiritual speaker offs himself. Okay. So anyway, so I'm there, and they're talking about this and that and the other thing, and you know what it is? It's Thursday at Radford noon, and it's a book study. Well, I'm telling you, there's nothing like a book study for a newcomer with a hangover. I'm telling you that. And you know what the chapter was? 2 wives. So that really lit me up. But I'm in there, and I'm looking around, and all of a sudden, way over there, I see this one with blue eyes that shine right across the thing, and she's looking at me, you know? So I'm, and at the end of the thing, they come over and they grab my hands, and I'm thinking, oh, okay. And they do the Lord's Prayer. I knew many of the words, and at the end, they do the wave, you know? And I'm the center of it, so I'm thinking, oh, they must have recognized me from television. All right. So, and she walks right over to me, and she says, you're new, aren't you? And I said, why, yes, I am. And she said, well, come back tonight. Yeah. So I went home, and I guess I took a shower or something, I don't know. And I went back tonight, and you know what? You're not going to believe this. She was not there. And so I came the next day looking for her, And the next day, and then, and she and I did become friends, and never any kind of romantic thing, and she just helped me, and she actually helped me to find my sponsor, Cliff. And so I started listening to stuff, and someone would say this, and someone would say that, and I every once in a while someone would say something, and I went, oh my God, you did that too? I thought I was the only guy that ever did that, And then I would tell Clifford stuff, and he would go, yeah. And he would talk to me about this book and about reading this book and finding stuff. And I started to look in there and find out different things. And as I was going through there, and one, it happened later, but the thing about the convention about contemporary investigation, in the spiritual experience in the appendix of the book, they want us to look at it 3 times in the body of the first 164 pages with the asterisk at the bottom of the page. It's important. Look at it now. Look at it 2 more times. And so that is important for us to see that there are different kinds of spiritual experiences, different than the physical experiences. I mean, we get some stuff where, yes, you get a job, yes, you get a house, yes, you get a bank account, and then, yes, you get those things called God shots. Yes, you get that conscious contact with God. But it happens whenever it happens. Bill Wilson actually said, if you're here and you're honest and open-minded and willing to this program, you've already had a spiritual experience. So Bill said it, that's good enough for me. Look at us today. You know what? It's Sunday. We could probably be watching, I don't know if because I'm not much of a sports guy, there could be something going on. And we're here. We're here. And this is about a spiritual thing that we all subscribe to. Alcoholics Anonymous is a spiritual solution to our problem. And for the Al-Anon ladies and gentlemen, it's about a spiritual solution to their problem. Because their problem, it's talked about in chapter 5 too. It's talked about that they're around us, and then they get into the thing and get all they can get out of it to when they're living with someone or they're experiencing someone that has the problem. And then we cause them to be dishonest. We cause them to do things that they wouldn't normally do. And so the solution is, the first thing is alcohol in the first step, and then the rest of it is about getting us to a power greater than ourselves. And it's a spiritual solution, and we know that because in chapter 5, it says how it works. How does this thing work? Well, chapter 5. And there's we have 12 steps, 12 traditions, 12 concepts, and 11 chapters in our book. And Dr. Bob would have been chapter 12. Why they did that, I don't know. But it's it. And there's also 12 words in chapter 5 that are exactly what the solution is. And I'm going to tell you, if you pay attention, I'll tell you in a little minute. But it talks about coming in and looking for that spiritual solution. It talks about the allergy of the body, which is if you and I take any alcohol into our body or drugs. I'm like last night's speaker. I'm an equal opportunity scumbag. I did drugs and alcohol, but I did drugs alcoholically. And so, and it wasn't my fault, because I was just a really good guy in my youth, and one of my wives, I can't remember which one, had me try some cocaine. So I tried some cocaine from 72 to 81, to see what all the talking was about, because people were really talking fast, so so it's this allergy of the body, and it is this obsession of the mind, not just the obsession for alcohol that we want to next drink, the obsession about what am I going to do, this, that, and newcomers, if there's any newcomers in here, if you want to know what the obsession of the mind is, it's what you're thinking right now. That's the obsession, okay? And so, it's going, what's going on, and it's about the worry, it's about the fear, and we'll talk about that in chapter 5, in the 4th step. And I got to tell you guys something. I'm sober 35 years, and in that 35 years, out of everything that I ever worried about, 97.3% of that stuff never happened. Never. And that's the deal. And you know where the stuff goes on? It goes on right up here. It goes on right up here. And the solution, and those 12 words are, not the 12 words, but it does tell us that from resentment stem all forms of spiritual disease. From resentment stem all forms of spiritual disease, not some forms, all forms. And when the resentments, when the spiritual is overcome, we straighten out physically, and mentally. When the spiritual is overcome, we straighten out physically and mentally. So it tells us that we've got to get to busy on that fourth step, writing about resentments. And the fourth step is not only resentments, it's fear and sexual problems. And my sponsor, you know, I was younger when I came in, and he was also in show business, and I'm trying to brag about, you know, what a great guy I am on the location and the girl, you know. And he says, I don't care. Why don't you go home and read page 69, and it's a great page for sexual athletes like yourself. And I believed him, so I'm thinking this will get me more women. I went to go home to read about it, and I was really disappointed because it said that if I want to stay sober, I can't be selfish, dishonest, or inconsiderate, and then I can't unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, or bitterness. I don't know about in the Antelope Valley, but where I live, that cut out about 97% of my action right there. So thanks a lot, Cliff, you know, for ruining my life. But here's the thing, a little bit further down, it says, if sex is a problem, throw yourself into helping someone else. It doesn't even say help another alcoholic, it says someone else. Help the lady across the street or whatever, mow someone's lawn. And then and there's a little prayer in there that I call the Riggs prayer, R-I-G-S-S. Pray for the right ideal, for guidance and sanity and strength to do the right thing. And it worked all right. And I had my flings in Alcoholics Anonymous. In fact, I'm here with one of my early flings, Mrs. Maxwell over there. We had a fling early on, and then we didn't. And I was 5 years sober, and she was 3 years sober, and it ended, and it didn't end well, as I recall. I thought it ended fine, and she didn't think so. And she didn't speak to me for 8 or 9 years. I don't remember how long it was. In fact, she got married in between times. And I did try to make amends to her. And she actually, I would be standing in a meeting. We go to meetings. We don't, just, nobody got custody in any meetings. That's the good thing. We shared custody of the meetings. And so I'd be standing there with someone, and she'd come up and say, "Hi, Bill, how you doing?" Okay. And so what happened is she divorced that guy. He had a problem with alcohol and drugs, and what's really funny? I liked him, and I'm probably a candidate for Al-Anon. And what happened is, one night we're in the meeting, and Scott used to go with us to the meeting. 28 years I know this man. Scott used to go to, we all went to this meeting called Church of the Chimes, a solutions meeting. Instead of talking about, the terrible things that are going on, we talked about the solution. No one ever did, but, that was the whole idea. Let's talk about the solution. But, it's out, and so we're in there, and the meeting is full, except for one seat right next to me. And in comes Terry, and she's leaning against the door and looking around, craning for a seat, and she cranes right by me, and I go. And so she doesn't want, I got chills. So she doesn't want to embarrass the meeting or, disrespect the meeting. And so she comes over and she sits down. And we had an English guy who was the leader that night, and he said something, how English guys have accents, and they think we have accents, but and he said something, and I mocked him, and she laughed, and she went, oh, she hit me, because she said, oh, I laughed at Don effing Maxwell, and so that's how it was known in her household, and then, they kind of just melted, but we didn't talk, as I recall, but then we went over to Solly's. Remember Solly's, Scott? And again, the same situation. About 10 or 12 of us are there, the big table they would push together for us, and Terry comes over, and again, right next to me, and then, the rest is history, and last May we celebrated 21 years of marriage, and we're doing... So I'm guessing this one might work out, and one of the reasons that I love Terry and love her in my life is that she has 32 years of sobriety, and if I were to drink, she's going to have more time than me. So, my ego won't let me. So anyway, so I'm sober, and I'm with Clifford, and we're at the meetings, and he would go afterward. And Clifford, instead of after the meeting going to get one of the most beautiful women, he'd go up to one guy that had one tooth, and it had a cavity in it, and we'd be talking to him, and he'd say, and Don, what about you? And I'd say, well, I've been sober for 6 months now, and I have a bus pass, and I didn't have a car at the time, and I paid my rent, and it get a little bit better, and then I'm getting some more sobriety and 11 months of sobriety. I should tell you this. Oh, I'll tell you in a minute. And so at 11 months of sobriety, if I remember, 11 months of sobriety, I'm at a meeting, and this guy named Steve comes, Steve C. Nicholas, you can say his name because he's not here. He comes over, and I broke what the thing was. I'm sorry. Okay. But the problem is, anyone that would buy this tape would be an alcoholic and wouldn't care. So anyway, Steve comes over to me and says, would you sponsor me? He had tattoos up and down his arms. He's 18 years old, rides a Harley, and I'm thinking, well, cream has risen to the top in Alcoholics Anonymous. Let me just run it by my sponsor over there. 1 minute, Stephen. So I went over to Cliff, and I said, Clifford, Steve wants me to sponsor him. And you know what Cliff said? He said, poor Steve. What? I said, Clifford, I go to meetings. I'm here every week. I go on panels with you. We go on 12 steps. What are you talking about? He says, you can tell him how not to drink for 11 months because you've done that, but you can't tell him how to do a 4-step because you haven't done that. And he had me on a technicality there. So here's what I did. I'm over there, and I'm writing, I'm resentful at my mother that she didn't nurse me long enough. And, Stephen, we're powerless over alcoholism. We're powerless over alcohol. Our life has become unmanageable. My dad never came to my football games, Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity, could be in the working word, could, the future conditional of can mean you're going to have to do something. He made a decision, and I beat him. And he's over here, and he says, when are we going to do the 5th step? I said, shortly after June 6th. Okay. And a 17-year-old newcomer probably saved my life, you see? And here's the deal. God probably doesn't, here it is. God doesn't have a wristwatch. You laugh at me. I love this woman, really. I do. God doesn't have a wristwatch because he doesn't know what time is. In fact, Einstein was trying to prove that time didn't exist. But we invented time, so, we would not be late for something, or I don't know. And when God looks down and he sees 2 of his kids talking, whether they're alcoholic or not alcoholic, if he has something he wants said, he'll put it in the mouth of whoever's talking. And so if the newcomer comes and he says something to me that I need to hear, God will have that newcomer say it to me. So it's not always, and if your sponsor told you something different, please do what your sponsor said, put the cotton in your ears or out of your mouth and put it in your mouth. That's cool. But, sometimes you miss stuff. I listen to the new people. Sometimes they're just telling me stuff that I don't want to do, and that's helpful to me. And sometimes they're telling me stuff that I didn't remember, and I say, oh, yeah, I did that. And so, so it's all good. So there we are, Stephen and I, stamping out alcoholism, and we're doing the thing, and we're doing the steps, and we're going on, and then all of a sudden this other guy comes up to me. He says, would you sponsor me? And I said, yeah. And this guy is vaguely familiar to me, and Terry is the music person of our family, and this guy was in, as it turned out, a pretty famous band. Well, not a pretty, very famous band. And I said, sure, so then our little family got bigger, and then another guy and another guy. And what happened is we're getting along, and then I'm starting to really like Alcoholics Anonymous. I never knew it would happen to me. And then one time down at this place called Radford, you guys must have several places like that where you love to go. And I'm there, and the old timers are playing cards in the mid room, and we had this place called the half measures room, where there was a pay phone on there used to be a phone. You'd put money in it, and you could get. And it rang, and no one would answer it. So I'm there. I've got 13 months, and I'm there. And hello, Alcoholics Anonymous. May I help you? And the guy says, yeah, I'd like someone coming over, and I can't, whatever he said. I don't even remember. And I said, yes, give me your address, sir, and we'll be right over. And so, yeah, I got the address. And then my sponsor told me, always take someone with you in case they want to kill you or give you drugs. And so I'm looking around, and I find two guys. One guy I sponsored and one guy I didn't. One guy had 3 months, was the rock and roll dude, and the other guy was English Bill that had 11 days. And so there we go, we're in the car, and there we go, us, God, and the big book, and I'm the head drunk, so and so there we go, and we're gonna stamp out. So we go over there, and he comes to the door, he's got the undershirt with schmutz all over the front of it, and he says, yeah, what do you want? I said, well, I'm Don. You call. Oh, yeah, I remember. Who are these guys over here? I said, well, they're with me. He said, all right, well, come on in. So we went in there, and I got to tell you guys something. I've lived in some dumps in my life, but this place was really something. It was like a bachelor pad. It was a one-room thing, like over here, past those tables and back over here, like that. A little place where there was a kitchen thing, and the pizza boxes and ramen, overflowing the trash can there, and a bathroom that the cat had long since beaten the cat box, and no furniture there. Well, there was in those days, the cinder block bookshelf, with a copy of the Prophet, to get chicks, and he's over on the floor. There's a mattress on the floor, no frame, just on the floor. Bedspread, something over there, and a pillow. And so we're squatting down there, and then God has restored my sanity, and we'd like you to join us on this trip. And oh God, So I know I'm not getting through to him, and so I nudge Dave, and Dave says, well, I've been sober for 90 days. And I'm going to go down to Florida and do a record, and my career may come back. And apparently the guy didn't like rock and roll. So we got English Bill over there with 11 days. You're on, kid. English Bill got right down in his face, and he says, Bruce, if you don't stop drinking alcohol, you're going to lose all this. He heard him. And we actually did. Remember when it was over by the airport at the Hilton? We gave him a 20-year cake. I suppose he's still sober somewhere. It's when God is ready and the guy is ready. And that's the thing, honest, open-minded, and willing. That's the deal. And if you're honest, open-minded, and willing, that's the thing that's got to happen. And so there are things that have to happen, and those steps are very important. And we came to believe that the power greater in ourselves could restore us to sanity. Could is a future conditional tense. That means we're going to have to do some stuff. And then the third step is not turning our will over the care of God as we understand him. It's making the decision to do it. When we were at the hotel today, we made a decision to come over here. But nothing happened until we took some steps to get here. And so the turning of our will and our life over the care of God, as we understand it, is 4 through 9 and continuing through 10, 11, and 12. So that fourth step is looking for resentments. And I'm going to share this with you. I know you know it, but I'm going to tell you this little secret that I found out in my sobriety, is whenever you have a resentment against another human being, no matter what, 100%, a resentment against another human being is when they're not doing what you want them to, period. Got it? Okay. Resentment is against an institution, you know, they're not doing what you want them to. And against a principle, and a principle is a law or a tradition or some sort. They're like, you know, you might, you know, why can't we do a little marijuana and still not drink? Well, you know, that's just a tradition, you know, and the, you know, why do we have to stop all the way at the stop sign? There's no one here. It's 3 in the morning, and you gave me, you know. So people, institutions, and principles with whom we are angry, and you put them down on paper, and you put why you're angry, and you put what you believe they did, and you put what it affects. And it says affects, which means it's being done to us. Effects is when we do it to the universe. And so we put down what it is. We're selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. And what did it affect? Our self-esteem, our pocketbook, our ambition, our personal relationships. We take a look at it, and we see that it's down there, and we look for those defects of character. Because the 5th step says, admitted to God, excuse me 1 second. Admitted to God, ourself, and another human being, the exact nature of our wrong. In the big book, it talks about selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened, which are the general nature of our wrong. But the 5th step asks for the exact nature. Now, if we say dishonest, that's cool. That's good. That's a good start. But how many forms of dishonesty are there? There's a liar, a cheat, a thief, a burglar, a pickpocket, a people pleaser, self-esteem, self-deception. So, you know, the exact nature of our wrongs, because you can't answer a question until you know what the question is. So you get that down on paper. Then it talks about fear, the second manifestation of self. And fear is nothing really. There's 2 kinds of fear. There's good fear. You know, when we go out and we're going to pull out onto that big highway, we look left and right. That's a fear that we might get hit by another automobile. That's good. That's a good thing. The other fears are not trusting God. Something's going to happen. Someone's going to get something for us. Are we afraid we're not going to get something? Or we're going to get hurt or whatever. Those are things are not trusting God. So most fears are not trusting God. I snatched a napkin from the table just in case. And the reason I sweat is so I don't explode and blow out that first row down there. So we have these fears, and they're not trusting God. And it tells us, and I want to run through it real quickly. Where's Clyde? When am I supposed to quit?
When you're done.
No, what time am I supposed to quit? We got to get these people on their way. All right, well, that really helps. Thanks, guys. Because I got 35 years of doing this, and when was it?
6 minutes.
6 minutes. Good. Perfect. Thank you very much. All right. So good. So we get the fears, and you take care of them. You got sponsors. You get page 68, 3 paragraphs. It's in there. We ask God to remove our fear and direct our attention to what He would have us be. We do as we think He would have us, and then we humbly rely on Him. 3 paragraphs. Do that. God, remove my fear of financial insecurity. Direct your attention to have me be. Oh, I paid these bills. I have this car. I have that. I have this much money. I'm married to that woman. Okay, and then we do as we think He would have me. I'll work and I'll get this and I'll save and I won't spend, and then I'll rely on God. Okay, and then we move over to sex. Don't be selfish, dishonest, self-seeking, and frightened. Don't unjustifiably arouse jealousy, suspicion, and something I can't remember. I'm sorry, honey. Bitterness. And then it says there on page 69, we then write what I should have done instead for a sound and safe future sex life. And then we go on to 5. We admit it to God, ourselves, another human being. The other human being knows because he or she has been there. God says, hey, great seats. I saw you do this. But we admit it to ourselves. And at the end of chapter 5, it says we have swallowed and digested some huge chunks of truth. And digested means put them out in our body to be strong. We find out about ourselves. That's the inventory. 6 and 7, ask Him to remove them. We're entirely ready to have Him take all. 2 absolutes in 1 step. Ooh, that must be important. And then we make amends. We make a list of the people we've harmed, make amends to such persons wherever possible, not whenever. because then we'll never do it. But wherever. How did they know to do that? I don't know. And then 10, 4 through 9, 11, sought through prayer and meditation improve our conscious contact. You want to know knowledge of his will for us? You know what his knowledge for us is? We're here. You know, we're this old, we look like this, and give us the power to carry it out, we're doing it. And then 12th step is let's help someone today. So we go on. So I've got 3 more minutes, and then I'm going to get down, and then we're going to have this a lottery, I mean a 50-50, and when I win, please don't be mad, you know. I bought 1 ticket, so 33 cents it was. She made an exception for me. So here's what I'm going to do. Before I sit down, I want to do this. I want to talk about, you know, we're going to not have contempt prior to investigation, but what we're going to do is we're going to get some dreams happening here. And we all have dreams, and I'm 76, so your dreams are going to be different than mine. But I want you to think about dreams. And when I got here, I had dreams. I wanted to run a marathon. I wanted to have a house. I wanted to, you know, I had all kinds of different. I wanted to go to New York because I wanted to see a Broadway play. I wanted to go to Europe. And I had these dreams, and I told Clifford about it, and he said, you just got to just stay sober and so forth. And what happened was, not in my first year, or my second year, but in my 7th year, I got on a plane with a ticket that I paid for with a credit card that had my name on it and not the name of a woman. And I went to New York, and I finished and completed the New York City Marathon. And I'm going to brag a little bit, but I'm not bragging about me. I'm bragging about Alcoholics Anonymous. The guy that won the marathon, a little Kenyan guy, you know, running around there, 3 hours and 15 minutes, and he's back in his hotel room drinking Perrier, you know. 3 hours and 15 minutes, I'm in Queens. Anybody can run for 3 hours and 15 minutes. It takes a sober man like myself to run for 4 hours and 18 minutes. And I did that, and then I got to see my first Broadway show ever. And when I was a kid, I used to listen on you know, what was it, Columbia Record, okay, never mind. And Broadway, and I'd dance around my room, and I'm straight, okay, you know, but and I saw my first Broadway show, and it was Crawford and Phantom of the Opera, and it was so great. And then I got to go to Europe and see some of the great paintings, and dreams started coming true for me in Alcoholics Anonymous, and so, you know, and stuff was happening, and more stuff happened, and this was early on. And can you imagine what's happened since? I mean, we have been able to move a little bit, and you know, they say that stuff you accumulate doesn't matter, and maybe it doesn't, but we like it. It's good. It's good. I'm happy about it, and you know, and it doesn't always come, and you know, sometimes people are reticent to say that because they don't want to make anyone feel bad. I'm saying go for it, man. You know, do the best you can. And if you're sitting here and you're saying, Don, you know, we're glad you came up from L.A. We're glad you got your old fat butt around 26 miles. That's really great. And we're glad you saw Michael Crawford do Phantom of the Opera a year. That's good. And we're glad you went to Europe, and that's also good. But I'm struggling to pay the rent, and I'm having trouble staying sober, and my girlfriend's going to leave me, and I don't know how we're going to take care of this baby. And what in the world does that story you just told us have to do with Alcoholics Anonymous and not drinking? And I'm going to tell you. Ooh. Nothing. It has nothing to do with it unless you're an alcoholic or an addict or an Al-Anon who walked through a door like that, ran into a man or woman in whom the problem has been solved, did the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous or Al-Anon, found a God of their very own, and then helped another man or woman who walked through that door, and then it has everything to do with it. And so what I'm saying is, no matter where you are in your journey, here's what you can do. No matter what step you're on, no matter how many days or years or months you have, do this. And when you go home tonight and you get everything done and you get the kids down or the dinner or whatever, if you go back to a halfway house or whatever, You thank God for Alcoholics Anonymous and men and women like this and the sobriety that's up here in the Antelope Valley. You lay your head down on your pillow tonight, and I'm asking you to do one thing. Let your dreams begin. Thanks.
I think we got a great talk going on here. Thanks for watching the channel. Taper Dave here. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.